I am vengeance.
Yeah!
I am Batman!
Yeah!
Welcome back to Dallas Comic Con.
Thank you.
We had you here this time last year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Last year.
Was it
No,
last
it
year?
was last year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a month before my book on the psychology of Batman came out. That's right, I remember. And well, you've been doing a lot of promotion for this over the course of the years, I think.
Yeah, there's a new, I can talk about it now. We've been working for about 9 or 10 months on the next Arkham.
Yeah!
And yeah, it'd be better if you wanted to come down. We were all, signed these contracts that we weren't allowed to talk about. The studio likes to completely control the rollout of any product, so they don't like any of us to talk about it anymore. So it's now been announced, and it's an unbelievable game. I still can't say anything about it because I would give it. I go, no, you don't want me to anyway because it would ruin it for you. But it's amazing. It's a huge cast and a big story, and it took almost a year to write and put together. They've been working on it for a long time.
Those games are huge in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's something very different for superhero video games.
Well, it's new for everybody in the business. I mean, the studios are making as much or more now from games as they are from feature films. Arkham made something like $100 million in the first month.
Yeah.
I mean, they make huge money. None of which the actors see, of course. We're just slaves to the cause. But what's interesting about it is it's not why you become an actor. It's interesting. It's like life throws curveballs at you, and you just got to hit them. The business has changed so much that I've had to constantly kind of morph into what, different kind of identities as an actor. And doing games now is totally different than doing the dramatic shows like Batman, the animated series, the animated shows, which is totally different than doing live action television. The gaming is literally 4-hour blocks of time alone in a booth where you have to feed yourself your energy. You have to keep your character alive yourself. You have no input from the other actors. And you do each line 4 or 5 takes, and then they want 4 or 5 readings of each line. And then they want it with a little bit of irony. And then they want that irony with a slight anger. Okay, now keep the irony and the anger and give us a little more attitude. By the end of the 4-hour block, you're ready to pull out your hair. And then you get an hour for lunch, and then you go in for 4 hours again. And this goes on day after day after day after day for a couple of weeks at a time. And then they go off and they rewrite stuff, and then they bring it back in, and they do it again for 2 weeks. The challenge is keeping the actor, keeping the character alive and fresh and real without getting any input from anyone else. You're in a vacuum. And keeping the voice accurate and true, because the audience, you guys, are so sophisticated now about animation and about the quality of the sound and the visuals, that if anyone screws up, you hear it in a second, and we hear about it. So you can't lie anymore in these things. You can't kind of fudge it. The audience hears it right away. So the challenge for me in doing the games is keeping it real, keeping it fresh, and not losing my mind.
Because when you originally did Batman the Animated Series, they would have the actors in a room together and you'd be interacting.
That's the wonderful thing about Warner Brothers. And Andrea Romano, who's this great director who did all of the Batman stuff. She's done all the Animaniac stuff. You know, it's just kind of the gold standard of directors. She insisted on having the cast entirely together in a room. Now, and that's also Warner Brothers, they like that. It's a little messier because you get 6 or 7 actors in a room together and they act like children. They do, but you want them to act like children because it's what keeps it alive, what makes it interesting. You get a lot of nonsense and you get a lot of attitude and ego, but you also get a lot of really interesting performances. And then you edit out all the attitude and the ego and you end up with the really fresh, wonderful, inspired moments. Disney and other studios don't like dealing with all that messy stuff. So they tend to bring actors in one at a time and you record alone in a booth. And I just think the performances are much more antiseptic and not as interesting. Which is one reason that Batman was such a great show. And it was just because we were all giving each other so much. And then, interestingly, word went out in Hollywood that there was this great show being done at Warner Brothers, and everyone wanted to come in and do it because they heard they're doing like a radio play over there. Everyone's in the booth together. So we started getting these wonderful actors who had never done this before. And it ended up being kind of a unique cast where there were a lot of voiceover people, but there were a lot of television and film people too who'd never done it before, which made the mix really interesting.
And you had done a number of those before you ever saw what the show really looked like, right?
Well, that was interesting because we did it for about 6 months. We started recording in 91. 1991. Some of you weren't even born then. And it started airing on Fox in prime time in 92. And so when you do the animation, especially when it was hand painted, which this was, now it's computer generated. Originally this show was one of the last of the hand painted shows. It would take 6 months. They'd send you do the recordings first, which a lot of people don't realize. And then the recordings are sent off to the artists. And the artists do the general story painting. Then it comes back from the artists, and there's what's called extra mouth flaps. Because they're literally creating animation for, art that has to match the soundtrack. It's a little off, so there are extra mouth flaps in, or they don't have mouth flaps where you wanted to have lines. So you have to adjust it. It's a process called ADR, where you sync the soundtrack with the visual. And then that synced soundtrack goes back to the artists, and it's cleaned up again before it gets on the air. So it's a long process. So there was that 6-month period in that 91 when we were recording them before they came back from the artists, recording episodes. So there were a lot of episodes recorded where we were just using our imaginations. We had sketches of what it was going to look like, but you don't really know what a movie's going to look like until you see it. So Mark and I, we love telling the story. He's an amazing actor, by the way. But we were
Mark who?
Mark Hamill. We were doing all these episodes together, and they went off, into the ether to get painted. And then 6 months later, we had our first ADR session where we were going to sync. So it was the first time that we were actually going to see what Batman the Animated Series was going to look like. We're sitting in a studio in Warner Brothers, and they had it on a big, like a feature screen projection. And whoosh, this soundtrack comes up, the full symphony score, which they hadn't done for an animated show before. And then the color, because it's all painted on a black backdrop, so the colors were like bouncing out of you. And then there was this film noir and this beautiful artwork and these dramatic graphics. And I looked at Mark, I said, did you have a clue that this is what we were doing? He said, not in a million years. We were both just like sitting there with our mouths hanging open, that this is what we've been working on. So we were completely shocked. And we knew then, when we saw it that first day, we said, we're a part of something that's really going to blow people's minds. This is going to be, a big, big show. And then from then on, you know, the audience found out about it. What can I tell you?
And how did that job change for you over time?
Well, what changed for me, actually, because, you know, actors always like to make things more difficult for themselves, because it just makes your life more interesting. And it made sense to me that Batman, well, one hook for me into the character was that Batman wasn't the performance. Bruce Wayne was the performance. I decided early on that an interesting way of approaching the character was that he is so damaged by what he saw as a child. He's so crushed inside, destroyed inside by watching his parents get murdered, that he literally becomes this dark personification of a bat. You know what I mean? He goes into this dark place. And it just made sense to me that that's, because, you know, all of us have a private self and a public self. Everybody does. We all, no matter who you are, everyone has a face they present to the world and a face at home or privately. His became so dramatically broken that the public face was like a suit I decided he was putting on. And I thought, oh, what if Bruce Wayne is the suit? What if it's not, he's putting on a mask and a cape and a cowl and becoming a Batman, but he's taking off his true identity and he's putting on this suit, this armor of a businessman, and he's making himself this dashing, sophisticated bachelor to navigate the world. So many people do every day. They put on this, what society tells us we have to behave like to function and to be successful. And I thought, that's interesting. So Bruce Wayne's the performance. So that made the voice for Batman for me much more, it became very organic and very easy to be there. But it also made me want to make the Bruce Wayne voice more dramatically different. So in the early episodes, before we'd seen anything, I was playing him almost like a David Niven character. I was really being a playboy. There was a lot of sarcasm, there was a lot of humor. You know, a lot of laughing, a lot of making fun of things. I was always looking for the humor and stuff. I used a lot of my upper voice register. And it was really interesting. It was an interesting dynamic that the character was that dramatically different. But then, when they realized how dark the show was, the overall palette of the show was so dark, that light quality in Bruce Wayne was jarring. It just didn't fit in that world. So they had me actually go back and re-record the first, like maybe six episodes of Bruce Wayne. They liked the idea that it was two characters, they liked the idea that there was a dynamic difference in the voice, but it just had to be really subtle. It really had to be toned down. And I understood why we had to do that. So that was one big thing that changed. And we only realized that after he came back from the artists, and we saw how dark it was. And suddenly there was this, you know, David Niven type character, you know, laughing a lot in his scenes, and it just didn't make sense. So that toned down. But the Batman quality was perfect for that world that they were creating. So.
And how have you felt about how other people have done their Batman voices on screen?
Well, I think that other people have come to the same conclusion I have, that you have to do two voices. That you can't be the wealthiest guy in the city, the most eligible playboy, the most successful businessman. You can't be the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, the Michael Bloomberg, all rolled into one of Gotham City, and put on a mask and no one know who you are. You know what I mean? That's asking the audience to suspend too much believability. It's just ridiculous. So it has to be a much more convincing disguise, which is why I did the two voices. So I think a lot of the on-camera people, once they saw that, realized that that made sense. It made a lot of sense. It has to be a much more convincing disguise. So that's led a lot of the on-camera actors to come to the same conclusion. Unfortunately, I think a lot of them have just kind of imitated the cartoon voice for Batman, which is a mistake, because it sounds like they're imitating the cartoon voice. I mean, that's a lot of the problem a lot of the audience has with that. It sounds like, wait a minute, that's Batman from the cartoon. That's, you know, and that's what I think is jarring for a lot of people, because there's a lot of criticism of the live-action Batman, how it doesn't work as well, the two voices. But I think it's just because they haven't managed to come up with their own two voices.
All right, well, I see a whole lot of people eager to ask you a few questions. Started over there last time. I'll start there this time. We'll go back and forth between the two. Please, if you have more than one question, please go ask him. Where are you signing? Where are you signing while you're here?
I signed. I already finished for today. I'll be here all day tomorrow.
Okay. Because if you have more than one question, please go ask him at his table. We've got a lot of people. We want them to have their turns too. So just one question per person, please. Okay, over here.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to say you are probably, out of all of the Batmans, the most inspirational to me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And one thing I want to ask you, in the one episode where they had chasing the Croc, and you go into the, I think it was when they were all different, there was a little boy seal, and that one episode, how did you feel that was so inspirational to people who were different in the world? How did it make you feel when you saw it? How it could reach out to anyone who looks different from normal people. How did it make you feel to be Batman acting and seeing that, how you reached out to someone?
The episode where Croc winds up in a freak show?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. That's been one of the really wonderful things about playing the character, is that people relate to him so well. You know, he hits people in a very personal place, psychologically. And to be a part of that with so many people has been such a challenge and such an honor, really. And what's wonderful about Andrea is she started out as an actress, which a lot of people don't know. And so she really knows how to talk to actors. And I think one of the reasons she cast me in the role was because she just appreciated not just the voice that I made. For her, it's not just about making an interesting voice. It's about the soul that you bring to it, and
Very much so.
the way you approach the character. There's so much more than just a voice. You can hear when someone's just doing an interesting voice or a goofy voice, or, you know. It's different if you're really coming at it from the inside out. And Andrea really pushes you to go there. When it's not really genuine, you go, let's do it again. Okay, let's do it again. Okay, look, why don't we just leave this line right now and we'll come back to it at the end of the session, fresh. Because what you're doing is great, but I know that you can be brilliant. You know what I mean? She'll just go for it and go for it and go for it. Which is great to have someone who isn't satisfied and pushes you to that. But that element of Batman being the other in society, he's the other. That's what people relate to so much with him, because all of us have some of the other in us. There's something in everyone that we think is ugly, that we think is weird, that we think doesn't quite fit in. Do you remember what it was like being a teenager? My God.
Yes.
Everything felt awful.
Yes.
And what's interesting is when you look at even the most successful, handsome, beautiful people around, they feel the same way. There's something in them that drives them crazy that they can't stand. And Batman is that. He's that guy. He lives it. And he turns it into something so heroic. That's what's so cool about him. There was an incident in New York recently where a man fell, had like a stroke or something, fell on the subway tracks. And he was stumbling around down there. And everyone on the platform was saying, "Get out, get out, get out, get out." And the guy was an old man, and he was like, I don't know if he hit his head or if he had a dizzy spell or something, but he couldn't, he just kept getting up and falling down, and kept getting up and falling down. And this one guy thought quickly enough. He jumped on the tracks, and this is just Joe Schmo. This is just, average Joe. He jumped on the tracks, and he laid himself on top of the guy in the bed between the two railroad tracks. Because it was too late to get out. The train was coming, the lights were there. And he put himself on top of the other guy, shielding his body with his body, holding him down, so the guy would stop trying to get up. And the train went over both of them. And they both survived. And when the guy was asked, "Why did you do that? You threw your life away for a stranger." The guy said, "How could I not? Somebody had to do it." It was such an incredible reaction. I thought, that guy is a hero. That's a hero. He just risked it all, and he saved this guy's life. That's Batman. And that's why people relate to Batman. He is a true hero. He risks everything for strangers. Because how could he not? He could not. It's in his DNA, like that guy in the subway tracks.
Over there.
I heard there's an interesting story about you helping out during the 9/11 attacks. Is that true? And could you please tell it?
Yeah, I live in Manhattan, and the wonderful thing that happened after that horrible day was that you've all seen pictures of everyone running away from Ground Zero with dust all over them. What you don't see are pictures of what happened the next morning, which is everyone running back, or even earlier than the next morning, a few hours later. New Yorkers are wonderful people. There's a real sense of community there. It's like a big, small town. So they had so many volunteers, they didn't know what to do with them. There were people crawling all over what they called the pile. And so by the time I went down, they were organizing people at the Javits Center, which is a conference center on the west side of Manhattan, and busing them downtown. There were so many people. By the time I got there, they said, "We have everybody we need. We have all the tunnelers, we have all the diggers, we have, we don't need anybody." And then they said, "Well, what we really need right now," he said, "we're setting up this huge restaurant, which we've commandeered a couple of blocks from Ground Zero to feed everybody. We've had to set up like a little city down there to feed thousands of people who are crawling all over this thing. Well, we need people with restaurant experience. Do you have any restaurant experience?" I said, "I'm an actor." "Of course I have restaurant experience." I said, "Do you need waiters or cooks or what?" They said, "Wait a minute, you cook?" I said, "Yeah, I worked in a kitchen when I was in Juilliard." They said, "Well, we need you, are you free?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "No, I mean now. Are you free now? We need you tonight on a night shift." I said, "Yeah, sure." So I went down and I joined this group working in a place called Nino's, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, because a lot of restaurants downtown had to close after that because there was no business for a year. But Nino's was commandeered. It was this huge room like this, a big Italian family-style restaurant on Canal Street. And they were bringing people from the pit in vans to this restaurant to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This kitchen was running 24 hours a day, and there were shifts, morning shifts and night shifts. So I did the night shift. So you get there at 6, you prep the evening, you cook the meal. It would be served about 8. 9:30, everyone would start, bussing the tables, cleaning up. by midnight you'd have cleaned up the kitchen, and then you'd set up for the breakfast. You'd prep the breakfast to leave for the next day crew. And then we would leave at 6 a.m. with the morning, everything ready for the, in the refrigerators for the breakfast and the lunch crew. So it was like what we call, the night shift. And it was really warm that September. And so these nights were very kind of sultry. And it's Lower Manhattan. There was nobody else down there. It had all been evacuated. There were these huge, work lights set up on the pile. There were glow above the buildings. And you'd hear these generators going all the time. And in the midst of this, there was this kind of low rumble of people. You never heard much talking. There was certainly never any laughter. This went on, this was like the week after, the first week right after. And there was still this horrible smell of sulfur in the air. And it was just, everyone was banding together, but at the same time there was this very deep sadness because there were no survivors, and everyone knew there were no survivors. And one of the other cooks, we're cooking away one night, one of the other things, he goes, so my day job is I'm an architect. He says, what's your day job? And I said, well, I'm an actor. He said, you ever use some specific kind of acting? I said, well, actually I do voices. He said, I knew it! I knew it! You're Kevin Conroy. You're Batman. This is like at ground zero. I said, how did you know that? He said, everybody knows who's Batman. I said, no, everybody does not know who's Batman. He said, this is so cool. He said, can I tell the guys, can I tell everybody who's been cooking there? I said, no one's gonna care. He said, you look crazy. He said, watch this. So he was out in the dining room and he goes, now, pardon my language, I'm about to use some fireman talk, which as you know is saltier than what we speak. Guys, you're not gonna believe who's been cooking your dinners all week. It's Batman. Bullshit. That's all we heard. And then, make him prove it. So I go, no, this is too good. So I'm back in the kitchen, I go, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman! Silence. And then this lone voice from the back of the audience goes, holy fuck!
I've been watching the Batman animated series since it first came out in '91, and I have to say, no disrespect to any other actors, voice actors, you are the definitive voice of Batman, bar none. Whenever I read a comic book with Batman, your voice is in my head.
I like to brainwash them young. Enslave them for the rest of their lives.
Yes, Master. Then my question is when you start doing the voice of Batman, not Bruce Wayne voice, you have to get to a certain mindset for doing it. Like particularly when you did the movie for Under the Red Hood and deal with Jason Todd. You have to get a mindset for it all.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really tried to approach it from the inside out, rather than just doing a dark voice. Which really has been helpful, because there have been some episodes, Batman doesn't, he's the strong silent type. There are a lot of episodes where I don't really say a lot, but there are some where I say a great deal. And to use that voice, to sort of cramp down your vocal cords like that for a whole episode, you could lose your voice. So I found that by really coming at it from the inside, it's made me support, just from a purely technical point of view, support the sound better. but also to keep the sound genuine, to keep it, you know, not just a funny voice. I've always come at it from the inside out. Does that answer your question?
Basically, thank you.
Hi.
It's already been said a couple of times, but yeah, you pretty much are the most iconic voice actor ever, as far as I can think of.
Thank you.
I'll ask you my other question, Ross, since we're keeping it to one. But what I want to know, I've been wanting to know for a while, some of my friends of mine as well. Will there ever be a real honest to form attempt at the Killing Joke?
The Killing.
The Killing Joke.
The Killing Joke is a graphic novel by Alan Moore in which the Joker paralyzes Barbara Gordon and really tries to make some horrible points to push Commissioner Gordon and Batman over the brink. That's the one that guy's holding.
So it's one of the grittiest Batman stories. It's one of the ones that a lot of Batman fans, a lot of comic fans have always wanted to see, and a lot of people just thought over the years it just may not happen because of its content. Just wondering, and over your years of
I
being
wonder.
Batman,
I mean, we really pushed the envelope with the TV show in terms of violence. Batman doesn't kill anybody.
No.
Ever. And even he was sort of the first MacGyver. You know, he uses his mind to catch people. And when it gets that graphic, it would be a hard story to tell. It would be interesting to see them do it. I can see why they haven't done it. It'd be really hard to.
Well, some of the grittier stories, like Under the Red Hood,
Yeah.
they have people other than you do the voice. Is that partly so they keep people from getting confused and thinking it's part of the Batman the Animated Series continuity, or is it stunt casting?
No, it's stunt casting, and it's also just directorial choice. Sometimes directors want to work with another person. But they've been very careful about how far they go with Batman in terms of graphic violence. Because it could get really crazy and scary. Even, you know, originally, the Joker was played by Tim Curry in the first, like, 5 episodes.
Right.
And he was wonderful. He's a wonderful actor. But he was scary, like give kids nightmares scary. He was really scary. And then when they told me they were replacing him with Mark Hamill, I thought, why? He's phenomenal. And then Mark came in and he was scary, fun scary. And I realized, oh, this is totally different. This is for a wider audience, you know, because there's a young audience and there's a mature audience, and it made his insanity fun, whereas Tim's insanity was really scary. So I think in pushing the envelope on the violence and in stories like that, I can see why they haven't done it. I would love to see them do it. It'd be interesting, but I can see why they haven't. It'd be hard to do.
Yeah.
Over here.
Hi. Don't want to sound redundant, I just want to say thank you so much for coming to Comic-Con and being so great to us fans.
Thank you. Actors wouldn't have jobs if it wasn't for the fans, you know. I never forget that.
Awesome, thank you. If you had to pick like either a favorite episode or a favorite moment from any of the series or video games you've done, what would be probably like one of your top picks, you think?
Well, one I really, there have been so many. I mean, but one I enjoyed as an actor was Perchance to Dream, which is just a beautiful, beautiful episode. And from an actor's point of view, it was so much fun because I was Bruce Wayne, I was Batman, and I was old Bruce Wayne, senior, and then I was young Bruce Wayne, and then I was Batman drugged. So there were 5 voices that all had to be believably related, but distinct enough so they were believably different people. That was just so much fun to do. And playing scenes with yourself, I mean, my God. You know, It's an actor's dream.
Definitely a top-notch episode. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any Batman story out there that you hope gets done, that you want to voice?
Well, I think I hope they bring it. I hope they do more of them. But to be honest, the reason that Bruce Timm stopped writing it is because they felt like they covered everything. They just mined everything they could out of it, and he was just kind of burning out. I hope that he comes up with some new ideas and wants to do it again. The studio wanted it, the audience wanted it, the actors wanted it, everyone wanted it. The only reason it stopped was really because the creators felt they needed to get away from it. They couldn't come up with anything else. And you've seen shows like that where they just start getting desperate, you know, creating sort of stupid situations just because they got to come up with something that week. And they didn't want to get into that scene. So I really hope that they do it again, that Bruce does it again. But there's no plans right now. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, well, it's well established. You are the Batman. And everybody flips out when you're not the Batman. And
Appropriately enough.
Appropriately. That's true. You beat the crap out of them if they didn't, right? But the reality is that, like the Arkham game, the first one, the only thing that was the stamp of quality to me about it, going in, was knowing your voice was in it. And so I knew it was going to be quality. I knew it was going to be authentic. I knew it was coming with that mindset. Because you represent Batman, not just an actor, how much sway do you have? Could you say, hey, I want to see Arkham Beyond. Let's do Terry McGinnis and old Bruce Wayne as a game. You know, what kind of leverage do you have because of your relationship with the fans?
You obviously don't know how Hollywood works. Do you know how much power actors have in Hollywood? Zero. Really zero. Unless you're an actor-producer. It's incredible. It doesn't matter how big the actor is or how big the star is. Unless they're a producer, they have virtually no say.
So then what do
You can try and sway people, you can plant ideas, and I have. I've said, you know, isn't it time to do, you know? But no. What's interesting is that, and you probably were aware of this, everyone thinks that actors have the big egos because they're the ones you see. Actors' egos are nothing compared to directors' egos and producers' egos. These people think they run the world because they do. I mean, you're dealing with huge egos in that industry on every level, and the actors are just the most apparent ones, and in many ways, sort of the least effective ones because their voice means the least. So, unfortunately, I have no input at all in what gets done. The most flattering thing for me was when they started trusting me enough during recordings to let me rewrite stuff, because they said, oh, we can't think of what he would say. Oh, come on, Kevin, you know what he'd say, just say it. You know, come up with something. What would you say? And so I just kind of improvised something, and I thought, wow, they trust me that much, this is great. But no. We don't have a lot of input.
So I can say we could probably do a Kickstarter, guys. It's really refreshing to see somebody so passionate up here. I'm sure everybody loves it, you know. And for Batman, your Batman in particular, I just can't wait to someday show my kids that. But for right now, we're going to go back to some the saltier talk. What's the silliest thing you've ever had to say as Batman, and would you mind sharing it with us?
Oh, boy. You know, I'm blank, but you're right, there have been some really silly lines. But when they write them, they know that they're silly. And they do them on purpose, because they just want to hear it in Batman's voice. Gee, I like that party dress. You know, and it's something just so stupid. And they'll do it on purpose, and I can see Bruce just breaking up in the movie. You know, well, we got him to say it, I can't think of any right now. But you're right, they do that to me. What? Oh, Captain Sunshine. sunshine. That was a funny thing. That was a funny story. Does everyone know Captain Sunshine? Okay. It's recorded in New York, and anything done in New York is edgier. It's just because it's not part of Hollywood. They just tend to get away with more. The artists tend to be a little more gritty. And I got this call to do this voice for this character, and I had been in LA. And I had just flown back to New York. They said they're recording, tomorrow, down in, I think it was in Chelsea. It was downtown anyway. And in a studio I wasn't familiar with. And they said, it's this show, Venture Brothers, and it's this captain. It's the Batman voice. Would you do the Batman voice? And I said, oh, sure, cool. I'll do that. Yeah, sure. Okay, they're going to email you the script. And they emailed me the script, and I thought, oh, I have to look at the script. It's tomorrow, I'm tired, I just got in. I'll just go half an hour early tomorrow, and I'll read the script when I get there. So I got a half an hour early. I said, hi, I'm Kevin Conroy. I'm here. Oh, Mr. Conroy, yes, the script is great. Oh, good. Did you get an email? Oh, yes, I got it emailed. Oh, yes, I'm familiar with it, thank you. I just wanted to freshen up on it a little bit. Can I sit over here? Sure. I'm looking at it, I go, holy crap. Because it's a superhero who, has special interest in his sidekick, shall I say. And intimate relations. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Warner Brothers is gonna kill me. It's really funny, but I can't do this. Of course a New York writer would think this up. This is so un-Hollywood. This is like, I can't do this. And I'm thinking, come on, you're an actor. Come on, it's fun. Be creative, go for it. No, they don't kill me. So I went up to the receptionist. I said, I have to put some more money in the meter down the street. I'll be right back. And I left the building. And I'm walking towards I'm literally walking out, of course, it's New York, I didn't drive. I took the subway. But I told her I had a car downstairs. And I'm walking down towards the subway, and I thought, oh, come on, Kevin. You're an actor. Of course you can do it. Go back, do it. Just take the chance, it'll be fun. So I turned around, I'm walking back to the place, and I got to the door, and I thought, am I crazy? I can't do this. Warner Brothers is gonna fire me. They'll kill me. They'll never work with me again. I can't afford to do it. So I go back towards the subway. I get towards the subway, and I thought, damn it, you've got to take a chance. You've got to do it. Be true to yourself as an actor. So I go back to the place, and I get to the door, and I think, oh, I can't do it. So I was back and forth. Finally, I thought, screw it, I'm gonna do it. I go up, I get out of the elevator, the door's open, and the two producers are standing there by the receptionist desk, and one of them says to the other one, you owe me 20 bucks. They knew exactly what I was doing. I think they were probably leaning out the window going, oh, there he goes, nice coming back. Oh, there he goes again. They all knew. Look, money. You owe me 20 bucks.
Okay. I'm going to piggyback that last guy's question about doing something different as Batman. Something that no other Batman live or animated has done is sing. And you sung Am I Blue? How in the world?
Was that fun?
That was awesome. Obviously, I'm asking the questions good.
Am I blue? It was fun. Andrea knows that I like to sing. And I used to sing in New York. And so she had them put it in. It was done, they put that in for me because they thought it would be fun. They knew they could always cut it out if it didn't work. And there was a real question as to whether they would use it. Because they thought, Batman singing? Is the audience really going to go for this? And they decided to leave it in, and it ended up becoming kind of an iconic scene. The audience loved it. Because it was so weird.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, we've only asking you singing now.
I'm not warmed up.
We only have a couple minutes left.
Yes, I'm sure we all have our own opinions on this, and as a Bat fan, I have my opinion. But as the Batman, who is your favorite Batman villain?
Well, I mean, other than the Joker,
All right, I'll pick the Joker then.
because he's in a class by himself.
Yeah.
He's pretty amazing. I think, gosh, other than the Joker, they're all interesting. I was going to say, you know, the sexuality of, I always thought there should be a coffee table book, The Breasts of Batman. Because the villainesses in Batman, let's face it, they're pretty amazing. And Bruce didn't think that was a good idea. But, no, I seriously told him we should do that. I think Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, Selena Kyle. I mean, the female villains on Batman are amazing because there's this whole sexual tension that is just so interesting. And the whole good girl, bad girl thing, you know, it's just so, it gets so complicated that those are fun characters. And they get really good actors to do it.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Is there anything in here after this?
Nope.
They haven't given me the 5-minute thing, even though we're supposed to have, when I'm supposed to call time now. But we're gonna go 2 more questions. The people who are at the mics right now. And the rest of you, I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Table, over here.
I just want to start off by saying you're my favorite Batman ever.
Thank you, thank you.
I just wanted to know if there's a particular person you like working with better in the booth, or just what was your...
Mark is really an inspiring guy to work with, and a very generous actor to work with. But to be honest, Andrea, part of what makes her so great is that she was an actor, and she knows how to talk to actors, and she really works well with you. The other thing that makes her so great is she has great taste in people. She does not hire jerks. And, you know, Hollywood is like any other business. There are a lot of jerks. There are a lot of wonderful people, there are a lot of talented people, and there are a lot of not so wonderful people, and not so talented people. So you can get stuck with some real, you know, jerks. And on our show, there haven't been any. Literally. In 22 years, I can't think of anyone that I really haven't liked working with, because she really hires great people. There was one person once, who shall remain nameless, who famously, and it's someone you know, who famously kept us waiting for like an hour and a half. Finally, we just recorded the show without him. And when I'm going to very carefully not use a gender-specific pronoun. When they finally appeared, we had already recorded the show, and they were going to have to be recorded on their own. They said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just couldn't get out of the house this morning." Really? We all have mornings like that, but we get out of the house. You know, it was just, that was a real kind of, that was a bad one. That was the only one I can think of that was a problem. No, they've all been interesting. Wonderful actors.
Thank you.
Sure. Last question, and then I'm going to give Kevin a present.
No!
Whether you want it or not.
This may be a little bit of a silly question,
That's okay.
but I'm glad you had brought up your previous singing career. I was watching Batman Beyond recently, and one of my favorite episodes is where Bruce is taken to see a kind of Broadway performance of tribute to him, and you're the one who's actually singing as the actor playing Batman.
Isn't that fun?
So I wonder, whose idea was that? Was that your idea?
No,
or?
it was Andrea's idea. Isn't that good? Wasn't that fun? I thought it was fun. But the voice of the actor on stage of a Broadway show was me. I thought it was fun.
It's what I wanted to give you. I don't know where I would be now if it weren't for the series you did. If it hadn't been for Batman the Animated Series, showing the world we can have a lot of Batman stories, serious Batman stories. Not just what you're seeing on the big screen, because they can't do the small stories and the many different characters. I doubt I would have gotten to write a book on the psychology of Batman. Like Batman and Psychology, A Dark and Stormy Nights, my book, it was done really well. I don't think it would exist if it hadn't been for the series that you did. And what you brought to the character defined it for all of us. And so, I don't know if you want it or not, but I want to give you a copy signed to the true Batman. You are the Knights. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for coming here again. We appreciate this. Okay.